All right, what is up, and welcome back for another episode of the Fit 40 podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about exactly what to do if you have lost a substantial amount of weight, but then all of a sudden you just get stuck and you really don't know what to do. You're scared of losing your results and you don't know what exactly needs to be done. Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what needs to be done based on evidence or evidence-based practices based on using it with people in the past. This is the stuff that actually works. It's not a gimmick like you see a lot of people promoting. Oh, bust through the plateau with this piece of crap supplement or whatever. Okay, this is the stuff that will actually get the job done. All right, but before we jump in, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening so you don't miss another episode. All right, now let's get into it. First, let's set the stage because a lot of people think, oh, I've hit this point when they really haven't done that much work to get to that point and they haven't seen the results that would justify doing what I'm going to be talking about. So this is more for the crowd that's lost 20, 50, 100 pounds. Okay. If you are hitting a plateau within the first like 5 to 10 pounds, it's probably an issue with the method you're using or something else. So this stuff really won't apply to you. But if that is the case, then I would definitely go back and look at some of the previous podcast episodes on exactly how to set up your training and your nutrition and make sure you're squared away. So let's say you have lost that 20, 50, 100 pounds and you're stuck. You're just like, no matter what I do, I feel like I'm doing all the same things. I feel like I haven't changed my eating and it just won't budge. The scale just won't move. I'm not seeing any results. So a number of things could be causing this. Big one being, and let's assume that you lost all this weight and this will apply to you, metabolic adaptation. Okay. This happens when you decrease in body size, when you lose muscle mass, and it's a normal thing of dieting. When you lose weight, you no longer need to burn the exact same amount of calories that you used to when you were bigger. Okay. This will reduce what's called your basal metabolic rate, those calories that we need to survive, those calories that we need to do the basic bodily functions of our body to make sure that we don't die. Okay. When you are bigger, you need more calories. When you're smaller, you need less calories. And that's just the name of the game. So you got to adjust the plan. And if you haven't necessarily been paying attention to protein intake and strength training to make sure that you're preserving or gaining lean muscle mass, if you lose muscle, you again will be reducing your metabolic rate. So now you require less calories to get the exact same results you were getting like 3, 6, 12 months ago. So you got to make sure that you do it the right way, first and foremost. And when this happens, usually these calories, the amount that you need to eat to get the rate of loss back to about a pound or two per week goes so low that it's unsustainable. It's just not realistic. And this is like when somebody sees the doctor and they have PCOS or insulin resistance and they're like, yeah, it's going to be like impossible for you to lose weight. It's not because it's technically impossible. It's because the amount of calories that you're going to require without managing that specific thing. Okay, if it just goes untreated and you are still stuck, the amount of calories that you would need to consume to lose weight is so low that it would, number one, just not be enjoyable. It wouldn't be sustainable. You wouldn't be able to mesh it into a normal way of living. And number two, the chances of you actually adhering to it long enough to see results are so low. And with that will come symptoms of things like malnourishment. A lot of the people who are taking the GLP-1 medications right now are noticing, for example, like losing their hair, their skin and nails getting more brittle. Things like that happen when you don't have enough protein and don't have enough calories overall in your diet. Could be a bunch of other stuff too, but that is one cause of that. Okay. And then when it comes to those two things, that's assuming that we're doing everything properly and nothing really has changed. The third one, which happens to a lot of people that they just don't really notice it happen because it happens over a very slow period of time, is that their adherence drops off. Okay. They get sick of the method that they've been using, whether that's dropping the calories super low, whether that's cutting carbohydrates, or they're sticking to whole foods only, to the point where they want those foods that they truly do love, that they can't have all the time, but they're starting to crave them more and more and more, which is something that happens the longer you diet. Those cravings start to elevate. And when you put that off for long and longer and longer, it just bottles up. And eventually you catch yourself doing more cheat meals, more cheat days. And you feel like, oh, I haven't really done that much differently. But you're doing that. You're eyeballing instead of actually measuring things out, because that's one way your body will trick you into eating more because it wants more calories. Little things like that that you don't notice. And it's just months go by and day one, when you were on the plan, looks totally different from where you're at right now as far as the adherence level goes. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Now, when people hit this point where there's this plateau and we're stuck and we're frustrated and pissed off and we're like, I don't get it. What's the natural thing that comes next? We just got to hop on a more extreme plan. So, okay, we've been doing keto up to this point. Now we're going to do keto with fasting or some other combination of that. And what that does is, number one, it doesn't do diddly squat as far as reducing the amount of calories, because usually you end up eating exactly the same. Or if it does reduce the amount of calories, they're so low that you end up in a shitty situation, because now you're eating so low calories that your body requires more, and you're going to get those negative side effects that come with not fueling your body properly. And on top of all of that, when you do this mentally, it takes a toll and it sets you up for disordered eating patterns and possibly even a full blown eating disorder. Okay. When you stack on all these diet methods, that is not healthy in any way, shape, or form. It just isn't. More is not better. Okay. And then when you do this, you lose more muscle, because when you bring the calories so low, you can only burn X amount of fat per day, per week, per month. What else? Like, if you are hitting that cap and you're going past that, what's left is your lean body tissue. That is things like your muscle, your bone density, and things like that. And when you do that, it leads to more doubt, because you're doing all these extreme things and nothing is working. And you're saying, I must be broken. I can't do this forever. I feel like I'm screwed. I don't know where I'm going. And then what happens there is we just completely say, you know what, screw it. And then rapid weight regain happens. And to be totally honest, when you do what I'm about to show you, you will gain a little bit of weight, because every time you lose X amount of weight, a certain amount comes right back on. And it's usually dependent on how much muscle mass you were able to maintain or gain. That's why people on the GLP-1 medications are pushed by their physicians to strength train, to consume more protein, at least the good physicians that are following the guidelines and actually keeping up with the science. Okay. So what do we do? Because when we regain all this weight, it always ends up starting back at square one or worse. Or maybe you lost like 100 pounds and you regained 40 or 50 and you're like, okay, I want to stop the leak. I want to like make sure that we are not going to get any worse from this point forward. So where do we go? Number one is examine your consistency. Like I said before, sometimes adherence is the problem. So you got to make sure that your calories are right, that your activity is consistent, and that you are actually doing things to a T. So if you are counting calories, you're not guessing calories by saying, this is basically what I should be having. No, you're putting it on the scale and actually understanding what you are putting into your body. Okay. Now, let's say all of that's accounted for. Like, you're doing the exact same amount of steps, the exact same amount of workouts. You're still doing all those things and you are in a calorie deficit for sure based on your numbers. Okay, so what do we do? Okay, you're metabolically adapted. You're doing all the right things. What can we do from here? Number one is add in activity, but do it in a way that's less fatigue. So right now, if you are at super low calories, you cannot add in a really crazy high intensity interval training session, because that's just going to wreck you. And then you're going to move less throughout the day, throughout the week from that thing, because it's too high fatigue. So you're talking low fatigue activities, like let's put 1 or 2K more steps in throughout the day by doing simple stuff. Take the stairs or block out 10, 20 minutes to do a quick walk throughout the day. Or you could do, say, like a light Pilates or a light yoga session, because you're moving and it is burning calories, but it's not doing it in a way that's going to reduce your activity afterwards. It's going to potentially give you even more energy. So that's a really easy way to do it. Okay, number two is you can raise your calories to at least your basal metabolic rate, because sometimes people go so low that, exactly what I just said, you go so low in the calories that your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your NEAT, goes down. You stop moving your hands as much when you talk. You stop opting for the less convenient options like going up the stairs, and you stop tapping your foot at your desk because you're so low energy that you're trying to conserve it without even thinking about it. So sometimes bringing those calories up where they should be, and I tell everybody BMR is like the lowest possible number you ever want to go. So if you want to check out what your basal metabolic rate is, just type in Google basal metabolic rate calculator, and the calculator.net one is pretty solid. Or if you have an in-body machine at your gym and it does it for you, that basal metabolic rate is usually pretty solid too. Okay, so you can do that. Now, let's say we do all of those things. What are we left with if none of that works? That would be a really good case for a reverse diet. So if you've never heard of what a reverse diet is, usually people market it as, oh, your metabolism's broken, you need to do a reverse diet. But that's just not the case. It's just a way of raising your calories over time so that way your body kind of does like a system reset and you get back to a place where you're able to feel better, your hormonal health improves, you're able to put on more muscle, you're able to sleep better. Because when we diet and go super low calorie, that stuff does get impacted. So sometimes you just need that brief moment in time to get yourself back to where you were, do that system reset, and then you can go back into a fat loss phase and get a lot more production out of it rather than just spinning your wheels. So how do we do that? Okay, first, the main thing is let's get more calories. So you add in 100 to 200 calories every 2 to 4 weeks until we've hit maintenance. And what I deem maintenance is when your inches stop moving, because you will gain weight, but it's going to be good weight. It's going to be more muscle. Okay, your muscles are going to fill up with glycogen, and with glycogen comes more water. Okay, you're going to have more food in your stomach. That is going to bring more weight. And notice, none of this is fat. Okay. When you do this correctly, the amount of fat that you put on is so minimal that you can lose it in the first week or two once you go back in your fat loss phase, assuming that you do it right and you take your time and you stick to it. And to put your mind at ease, 1 pound of body fat is an extra 500 calories a day. So if you have been losing X amount of weight on these certain amount of calories, like let's say you've lost like a pound a week for the last month or two, and you're like, okay, I want to jump into a reverse diet, then you have 500 calories of runway. So if you're only adding in 100 or 200 and you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to gain all this weight, physiologically, that makes zero sense. You have nothing to worry about. Okay? As long as you're adherent, as long as you're doing everything properly and keeping yourself honest throughout this process, you should be fine. So the measurement I like to rely on is usually waist, so that smallest part between your hips and your ribs, and making sure that that stays about the same. Now, if you're losing inches and you're still doing this, then keep adding calories until you get to that point. Because if you're continuing to lose body fat, you are in a deficit. Even if your weight hasn't budged, but your inches are going down, that's a good way to know you're still in a deficit. You're probably just doing a really good job as far as building or maintaining muscle mass. So that all being said, make sure that those inches are not budging. And then once you've hit that point, that's where you want to chill. And that's usually somewhere around 500 to 1,000 calories above where you're currently at. Now, like I said, this is not to repair your broken metabolism. You are not broken. There are things that you can do. There are people you can reach out to that will help you in a way that is backed up by evidence. So just know that going into this, because you're going to see a lot of, when you type in reverse diet, you're going to see a lot of bullshit. Okay. The real reason that we do this so slowly is for these main reasons. Okay. Number one is digestion and bloat, because when you start eating more food and you go right at it, it can be very uncomfortable. You're not used to eating this much food. It's been months, possibly years since you've seen this much food in your diet. So you need to ease in and you got to let your body do its thing and kind of rev back up. Your digestion and your body is adaptable. It can adapt to these new calories. You just got to let it do its thing and not rush into it. And you got to trust the process as well. It'll also minimize fluctuations, because if you're going to be taking your body weight every single day and you're going to be taking your inches all the time, then you're going to notice when you first put those calories in and you stick to it, you will notice that your body is going to get a little bit bloated. It's going to retain a little bit more water. It's going to be heavier on the scale because your body is figuring out where to move everything and how to process everything. Now, does this mean you're gaining a ton of body fat? No. Okay. This does not mean you are gaining a bunch of body fat. It just means your body is in a state of flux and it needs a second to figure everything out. And with this, you can also expect more activity, because when we add those calories back in and you are now no longer in a deficit, you will have more energy to do more things like talk with your hands, tap your foot, like I just mentioned before. And what this is going to do is it's going to burn more calories. So now because you have more energy, because you're doing more things, because you're burning more calories, you require more calories to get to that maintenance point. So you have even longer of a runway of not gaining any body fat. So that is one good thing that comes of this as well, because your activity levels can go through the roof. I know, at least personally, when I go back to maintenance calories, I walk a lot more. I have the urge to jog sometimes, and I hate cardio, or I love hitting pickleball for an extra day out of the week just because that energy is there. All right. And then last but not least, you got to get used to it mentally. You need the confidence to prove to yourself over and over again that, hey, I add in these calories, my body knows what to do with it. My inches are staying exactly where they should. Even if I'm gaining weight, it's pretty much all muscle. I know what's happening with my body. Okay. And also, getting used to seeing more food on the plate can mess with you a little bit, because you've gotten so accustomed to, these are my meals, this is my norm. But now your norm is being changed. So coming with that change comes a lot of uncertainty and a lot of anxiety. So you got to work through that. And you got to get used to this new norm that you are now in. And that's why it helps so much having a professional in your corner, like a coach or even a therapist at this point, if you're comfortable with making sure that you do everything that you're supposed to do, and you can hit the numbers, you know exactly what to do, and you're good on that front, but you just need the mental side of things. A therapist can be extremely helpful, especially somebody who is well versed in eating disorders and the whole concept of dieting and understands it thoroughly. So never hesitate to reach out to a professional if you want to do this right, and you only want to have to do this once. So that's pretty much that as far as reverse dieting is concerned. It's that 100 to 200 calories every 2 to 4 weeks, and then ride it as far as you can. Drive that calorie number as high as you possibly can, while keeping a maintenance level of inches. Let the weight go up if you want to, because it will be mostly muscle, but focus in on those inches and you should be a-okay. Now, if you want more helpful tips like this, and you want to actually do this along with other people who have been through this journey, like the Fit 40 clients and like people who are in this Facebook group, go ahead and jump in the Fit 40 family. It's my free Facebook group where I talk about this stuff all day, every day, daily tips, monthly challenges. It's a fun time. And then if you want to take it to that next level, go ahead and apply for the Fit 40 Kickstart. This is a full 3 weeks of one-on-one coaching for free that will teach you the foundations of exactly what I talked about in the beginning, where it's like, let's get your nutrition right, let's get your exercise right, and let's get your mind right. So if you want to make sure that you have all 3 of those factors good to go and get the highest level of accountability you will ever receive, then go ahead and apply for that once you're in the Fit 40 family. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next time for the next episode. But until then, go kick some ass. I'll see you later.